This is the CreaseCast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Friday edition of the CreaseCast. Yes, it is just me today, but that doesn't mean you should turn this episode off yet, because we have a different sort of plan for today's episode. Obviously, we're not going to... Well, there was a Canucks game last night, and there's a Canucks game tomorrow, and then there are 3 more Canucks games after that. There's quite a few of them, but... let's be honest. How much do we really want to talk about the Canucks right now? Like, there's not really much else to say. I mean, yes, they've officially been eliminated from the playoffs. They played last night. They lost 4-1 to the Calgary Flames in one of 4 very meaningless games for the Canucks to play. Tomorrow they play Edmonton, which has, I don't want to say any stakes per se. I mean, there's nothing about the standings will change, nothing about the point totals will change, nothing. Unless you want to argue that, say, Edmonton can improve their chances at longer home ice advantage, depending on who makes it through to the conference finals if they got that far, and if they got to the reseed point. So there's something theoretically on the line for Edmonton, but the games against Calgary, other than draft space spot, have nothing really. There's nothing really to talk about there, other than like a couple little bits and pieces about how well the teams did, how everything went. There's not really a whole much to spend on it, really, because there's nothing really of value coming out of these games. We will hand out an Infinity Blocker. I will go a little bit into the Calgary game, just a tiny bit. But for today's episode, because of the fact that the playoffs start tomorrow, again, this is the whole other aspect of it. The fact that the Canucks have 4 more games and are going to be playing them while the Stanley Cup playoffs are in full swing, just because the NHL never seems to get out of its own way. And then for some reason the other North Division teams don't even start right away. Like, they have to wait until Calgary and Vancouver are done for some reason. That makes completely no sense, because again, there's nothing left for them to play for. There is no rhyme or reason why they should have to wait for Vancouver and Calgary to finish up. I don't get it. It makes no sense. But basically, if you're not a subscriber to our CreaseCast Patreon, which you should be, by the way, for $5 a month, you get the bonus episodes of the CreaseCast. You get our off the post series. On Off the Post last night, on our newest one, we recorded our bracket predictions, and we thought as a treat today, we would make those public for you guys. We would let you guys, we would add that section of the show onto the main episode today. So that way, so it's not technically a full episode where it's just me. You will get, if you skip ahead to the next part, there will be a whole section to kind of round out the show with our playoff predictions and everything for you to check out. So that's going to be later today, later in this episode. So yeah, we'll have that to look forward to, going over all 8 of the first round series, our predictions, filling out our brackets. If you haven't seen already on social media, on our Twitter, we posted a link for you guys to go check out to join the CreaseCast Bracket Challenge League. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can check out the link below. Or you can go to bit.ly/2021 CreaseCast Playoffs. It'll be there as well. Password to get into the league is #MyContractSucks, no caps. There are no capitals anywhere. It's just #MyContractSucks, no spaces, no capitals. Go check that out. We'll include a link in the description of this episode as well for you to go find those things. And fill it out before tonight, I guess, when you're listening to this Saturday morning. You're probably listening to this Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, before the Canucks and the Oilers. Again, look, the whole point of this is that this is really all we have really left to talk about. What are we going to gather out of this Canucks team? A Canucks team that has nothing to play for. Aside from, again, where will they sit in the lottery? Right now, the Canucks are currently sitting, based on points percentage, they are sitting they're sitting in 28th. And they could finish as low as 29th if they lose every single game for the rest of the season. So 4 more games. They're close. They're tied with New Jersey, who's already finished. Basically, they have to literally lose every single game for the rest of the playoffs to get it to the rest of the games in regulation. They cannot give up a single point. Otherwise, at the very least, they're probably going to finish top 4, top 5, but they could bring themselves up above Ottawa. They could bring themselves up above Calgary still, technically. There are draft lottery positions at stake for the Canucks, and that's it. But of course, the team's not going to see it that way. They're going to see it as losses, and they're going to see it just in the fact of are these wins and losses. They don't care about the future of the team because, of course, they don't. Why would they? They care about their next contract. They care about the future of their own careers. They're not going to Again, that's the thing that always gets lost in these conversations about tanking and whatnot is people always seem to no matter how many times you explain it to people, when we talk about tanking, we're not talking about the Canucks purposely telling their players, all right, you have to lose tonight, and all the players going, yes, we care about getting Brant Clark or Luke Hughes, I think is the Quinn Hughes brother is also an option for him. They don't care about that stuff. They're just going out to win. It doesn't matter to them about draft rank or draft position because they have contracts and they have careers and families to worry about. So they're going to be going out and trying their best. And considering the 4-1 loss to Calgary the other day, where they looked just dead in the water, and I mean Calgary did as well. Like neither team really looked like they wanted it. Calgary was just kind of was just better. Was just the better team that night, and I think it's unlikely to say that the Canucks will lose all 4 of their final games. I think they'll win at least 1 against Calgary. I don't think they're going to win tonight against Edmonton. It'd be a nice surprise if they did. But I think at best they're going to win 1 game out of the next 4, which is not good enough. It's not good enough for what this team is supposed to be and what they're supposed to be this season. They were supposed to take a step back, yes, but it's been worse than that for a lot of reasons, and I think we all know that. There is hopefully light at the end of the tunnel here. Let's hand out an infinity blocker. There's only really one person to hand it out to today. As we get into this segment, again, we've struggled at times to find the right people to hand this out to every single week. But today there's an obvious one, and that's Matthew Highmore. First NHL goal, or sorry, not first NHL goal. First goal as a Vancouver Canuck. He got it done. Yes, he did. He got a nice tip and a nice deflection in front of the net on Jacob Markstrom, a low shot, managed to get a piece of his stick on it, put it up over the shoulder. It was a good hardworking goal. He's getting time on the ice with players that he probably shouldn't be. Like he's getting a lot of top 6 minutes, which is very concerning. Again, just speaks to the lack of depth for the Canucks. But hey, he made it count yesterday, and I think that deserves a little bit of credit. Yeah, there's really not much. Again, there is not much to say. Like, what are you going to really say here? Like, can we take stock in the individual performances? Not really. The team, the players are doing their best considering that they came back from COVID. They're insanely gassed. They've been going through city after city on just a tour of misery at the moment. Like, this is like it's very much a case where it's like you can tell that team just wants to go home. They're tired. They've dealt with a lot this season, a lot of hardship, a lot of just some of the worst possible conditions in terms of COVID and health and whatnot. Lots of injuries, star players lost to the point where Elias Pettersson only played 20 games and will not return again this season. They're out of call-ups until Sunday, until the AHL season ends. There's not much you can do. There's really not much you can do, but especially considering the NHL just refuses to let these games go. They should just say, all right, we're done here. Everyone's going in to the draft lottery based on percentage rather than points. And it honestly wouldn't change much. It really wouldn't change much. So why not just have them finish 3 more games of this? If you want to have them play the Edmonton game, sure, go ahead. I don't see why they need to go any farther past it. Um, but there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to where this team could go. And I think we'll talk about this more on our Tuesday show when we get Cody back. Well, Tuesday or Wednesday, because honestly, I believe the Canucks' final game of the season is supposed to be Wednesday. And I don't know if we're going to do it. I don't know if it makes much sense to do the Tuesday episode. Yeah, Wednesday. To do an episode on Tuesday right before their season finale. It kind of makes a little more sense to do it on the Wednesday. So we might change the schedule just a little bit for next week, just to give a proper eulogy to the Canucks season. So we don't have to do it again. But nonetheless, there is light at the end of the tunnel here, at least from some early reports we heard today. Matt Sakaris from Sakaris and Price on his Welcome Matt segment at the beginning of their show basically talked about the fact that right now there is a lot of discussion going on within the Aquilini family and their business, their heads of business, for all their different like divisions of who run all their like hospitality and their alcohol business, their investment, anyone in the like the major big wigs of like their investment group, as well as like the family, basically deciding whether or not they're going to just potentially start from scratch here. They might start the Canucks from scratch. Basically, in term, not just we're not just talking about Jim Benning's job. We're not necessarily talking about Travis Green's job. Although, again, I think that's shouldn't factor in. I think Travis Green's done a wonderful job with what he's been given this year, and the past 3 years, for that matter. 3 or 4. Oh God, it's been such a long time. He's done his job. He's done a great job. I don't think he should factor in, but nonetheless, there's a lot of talk that not only could Jim Benning potentially be on his way out the door, you could also see a scenario where Jim Benning's gone, where a lot of the nearly the entire front office is gone. They might, to the point where, excuse me, this is just how surprising it is. There is a little bit of discussion that, allegedly, rumored to be, a bit of discussion that Francesco Aquilini has tied himself too closely to Jim Benning for their dad. They're like the head of the entire company is Luigi Aquilini, for his liking, to the point where he might be gone. Like in terms of they might take him off of day-to-day operations, and replace him with his younger brother Roberto Aquilini, who will then be in charge of essentially rebuilding the entire Canucks front office entirely from square one, like a straight up burn it to the ground, start all over again situation from the business and hockey ops standpoint, specifically hockey ops. It would be a change for sure. I've said before many times that I really want to see something like Lawrence Gilman coming back into the fold as like a president, with Roberto Luongo coming in as a GM once he's gotten he's gotten some experience under his belt, and that's starting to happen. They have the World Hockey Championships are coming up. They just announced the roster for Hockey Canada, of which Luongo is the general manager of said team. So that's some great experience for him. I mean, his Florida Panthers are going to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're going to play against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He is not a GM there per se, but he is a major part of their front office in getting the goaltending situation shored up, which has been fantastic. Chris Drieger and Spencer Knight have been absolutely stupendous for the Panthers of late, and I will talk about them more in our bracket discussion with Cody later in the show. But regardless of who it is, as much as I love Gilman and Lou, and I would love to see them come in and do this together, I think in reality, it doesn't really matter who they bring in. Like, yes, there are obviously bad candidates, but as far as the actual, how much do you care about change aspect and at this point, it's really gotten to the point where this Canucks team is so just, every single aspect of the front office just seems toxic to the touch, right? where it doesn't really matter who they bring in. It feels like just about anyone they could bring in would be an improvement on what they have now. Um, one of the things Matt Sequeira's talked about today is the fact that they don't usually the family isn't the Appleanic family wouldn't have necessarily step in to change anything unless they feel the brand is at stake. The Canucks brand is at stake, and frankly, it has never been more at stake than it is right now. Like again, it's toxic to the touch. There is not a lot of people who want to do business, who would want to do business, who would want to be associated with the Canucks brand right now because it's such a mess, and because Jim Benning has made the team has built a horrible team, has built a completely weak team in depth in every single aspect really, like us outside of their top six. They're outside of the top six and a couple defensemen. There's not a lot, and their goaltenders. There's not a lot there. There's the situation where where they essentially have rolled over and let other teams do their bidding. Like it came out recently that Michael DiPietro was supposed to start 6 of the team's last 8 games. The Blues basically complained to Jim Benning, or like the Canucks organization, that their goalie Joel Hofer should get more games, and the Canucks just rolled over and let them, even though the Utica Comets are their own franchise. They own the team. And DiPietro, they basically had to somehow fight for DiPietro to start 2 games. Like, just a huge, colossal mess of wow, you're just rolling over and letting other teams just do whatever they want to you, basically. And you could put that same kind of that situation into the fact that the NHL was about to let the Canucks go out on this awful, awful run to end the season after COVID, and the front office and ownership was going to let them do it. Was going to let them do it until JT Miller spoke up in the media and said, "Yeah, we're not ready. Please give us a few more days." They would have been made if he hadn't said something. The team would have been like, "Yep, you go and you do it. Have fun. None of us got COVID, but you all did. Have fun." Like, that's the problem. Like there's just so many things in there. I think Ian McIntyre said on Thursday that on Halford and Bruff, that there's never been less communication from the Canucks, not just to their players, but to everybody. And I mean, we can get into the whole situation where Tyler Toffoli basically dropped the hammer in a Players Tribune article yesterday, saying that the team didn't even offer him a contract after they literally paid a Tyler Madden and was it a first or a second round pick, like a high pick, to get him as a playoff rental last year. They just let him walk. They let him walk for $4 million. And he scored 26 goals this year, one of the best goal scorers in the National Hockey League this year, and they just let him go. This is the kind of stuff. They don't communicate with their players. They can't seem to multitask. There are so many things wrong with Jim Benning and his front office, and the way that the Canucks have Canucks ownership, specifically the way Canucks ownership has let him turn it into a chaos mess. That is a problem. It is a toxic front office on so many levels. And it kind of needs they just kind of need to take a blowtorch and burn it to the ground. That's kind of where they're at now. And the fact that it's being even discussed is great. And hopefully it leads to real change. Because again, I've said it a lot of times this year. There are so many times this season where it has felt like listening to Jim Benning talk, felt like I was listening to Trump press conferences with like Kayleigh McEnany telling me, "Oh, this is why. Here's a complete BS lie that we're going to present to you as fact, even though a very quick fact check could tell you we're full of crap." That's been a lot of what the Canucks have done this year, and hopefully this is the start of real change. Hopefully they look at what's gone wrong in Vancouver this season, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they, wanted to spend less money, really. It just it comes down to the decision making for why the money why they left so much money away from the ownership management, and why it was like that in the first place. If you're a good team, you don't need to do that. It's the fact that the team was in such a bad spot that they needed to go in this direction. And what else can you say other than I hope that we are gonna finally, at the end of the season, we will look back on this year and we'll see the start of a real change and a real shift in the culture back to what made the Canucks so great in the late 2000s, early 2010s. What made them a Stanley Cup finalist? What made them a back-to-back President's Trophy winning franchise? There are lots of candidates out there and a lot of people out there who could turn this thing around. It's not from an on-ice standpoint, it is a lot easier than just it's a lot easier than I think people think for them to turn this around. The problem is right now they don't have the people in charge who could do it. Jim Benning, as long as he's in charge of this team, and I've said it before, as long as Jim Benning's in charge of this team, the Vancouver Canucks will never win a Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter how great Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes and Brock Besser and Bohovet are. They're fantastic hockey players. Fantastic. But as long as they have a GM in charge who does not give them the right tools and the right supporting cast to make things to improve around them, they will never win. They will never win a championship. They will never be good enough to beat the best teams in the league. They will never be one of the best teams in the league on their own. You've seen it with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They couldn't do it alone. They finally got a couple good helping hands, and suddenly they're second in their division. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes the right person. Jim Benning is not the right person to keep going. It's time for a change, and hopefully we're going to see the start of that in the next week or two. And on that happy note, on that less ideal note, I guess, we're going to jump right into the segment of the show where Cody and I last night talked on Wednesday night, talked about our Stanley Cup playoff predictions and filled out our brackets. So with that in mind, here are our Stanley Cup 2021 predictions for the first and second round, as well as a few finals predictions. Enjoy. All right. This is the final part of the show. We get to the final little segment. This is the longest one. So playoffs start on Saturday, and this part of the show actually is going to also be included in our main Friday show because, frankly, no one wants to hear me talk about the Canucks and the Flames because that sucks. Because that's going to suck. So, hello to all of our regular listeners. This is a Patreon segment that has been clipped out into the regular show. Cody's here, and we are talking about the playoffs because the playoffs start on Saturday, and by the time we are next recording together, they'll already be in full swing.
Yeah,
so
the playoffs will be over.
The playoffs will be over. Yes. The 2021-22, man, you just don't get a break. You won't get a break. So today we're gonna do our brackets for at least the first two rounds. I don't believe we can do the entire bracket today, but the NHL Bracket Challenge opened up. For those of you who want to join us and play, you can join us by checking out the CreaseCast Bracket Challenge. We have included a link here for you to check out. We'll also include the link on the promoted on Twitter. With the password for our private channel for all of you listeners, the password being #MyContractSucks. For all of you who want to get in and enjoy it for us. But for now, we're going to do our brackets right now. So, Cody, what division are we starting with? Do you want to go north or north first?
Let's do north last. Let's end on the Canadian division first.
End on the
Canadian division. So we'll go. Let's start
east.
We'll do clockwise, starting with East Division.
East,
Pittsburgh,
Central, West,
New York
North.
Islanders,
Okay.
Washington, Boston.
Okay. Do you want to go first for the this series, or should I? I guess we'll start. Well, we'll just start by showing off each of ours here.
Sure.
Well, at least yours. We'll start with yours. So, East Division. The first one we have here is Pittsburgh, New York. First of all, overall thoughts. The Penguins came out of nowhere to win the division, to win the East Division. The Islanders,
in spite of Brian Burke, they did everything in their power to get to the playoffs before he blows up the team.
Yeah, that and just the fact that they're an old team. This is so, and then you have the Islanders, a team that has really done overly well over the last 2 years. This year kind of fell a little bit more to earth, a little bit more in line with what we expect, but still quite good.
NyQuil on ice.
NyQuil on ice, like we said in the last episode. So we already kind of did a little bit of a intro into the first few divisions, all the Eastern-esque
We
teams.
did in our last episode, which you should check on your favorite podcast platform.
Yes, if you haven't already. Yeah. But okay, your overall thoughts on how with Penguins Islanders?
I can't even shed my disdain for the New York Islanders. I have to pick Pittsburgh in my bracket. I don't.
That's
I hope they sweep them. I don't want to watch Barry Trotz hockey. They
nobody does. Nobody does.
Probably go 6 or 7 to be honest. But yeah, I just can't. I can't do 2 rounds. I can't see like fun teams like Carolina get to the like Eastern Finals or whatever, and then face down like boring trap hockey in 1-0, 2-0 games. No. That's not playoff hockey to me.
That's
my pick. Pittsburgh in 7.
Pittsburgh in 7. Okay. I'm very much in the same realm as you are here. I think they're like the Islanders are one of those teams that are just, again, they're so good at turning every game into a slog that in a way, like, they could very easily just lull the Penguins and like completely like put them into just like sleep, basically put them to sleep and then just take over. They're very good about that. But I think this time around, considering how well they've done of late, Tristan Jarry has done quite well. That's kind of the one question is, can Jarry outplay the Simeon Varlamov, Ilya Sorokin tandem?
Right.
But I think Crosby and Malkin and Jeff Carter and Jared McCann are going to outlast them here. I think they can hang on. I think it's going to be a huge grind like you did. I think the final game is going to be the last game at the Nassau Coliseum before they move into their new Belmont Park arena. The Islanders are moving into a new arena next season. Not a basketball arena this time. I'm going to say 6. I'm going to say 6 for them. Washington, that's it. What was that?
That's encouraging. That's what we like to hear. The sooner that series is over, the better.
Yes, agreed. The sooner the better. I think Pittsburgh in 6. Washington, Boston. This is the series of Zdeno Chara. This is the Tom Wilson versus Brad Marchand. It's basically comes down to, when it comes to who you're cheering for, it's kind of like, which one is the lesser of two evils here? I think Halford and Bruff were talking about this. Like, is Brad Marchand suddenly a hero to you because Tom Wilson just sucks so much? That's kind of the possibility here, depending on who you talk to. I'll start for this one. I'll say, I think Washington is they finished second. They have Vivek Vanacek is, I think, their goalie's name. They're running with a bit of a younger goalie tandem right now.
Super bizarre.
Done okay. They've done all right, but that team overall has been and Ilya Samsonov is the other one as well. I think Boston is third. Like, Boston might be the lower seed here, but I think they're the stronger of the two. I think they've got Pasta, they have Bergeron, they have Marchand, obviously, and they have a very deep team. And this doesn't even account for the fact that, Taylor Hall came in and has done incredibly well for them as well.
Lazar came over and apparently has been a decent contributor. Like, they got good pieces, and like you said, I don't think they're that deep on defense. They're like really young and kind of inexperienced, but like at the at forward specifically, they're very, very deep and very well rounded, which makes them pretty dangerous. And Tuukka Rask is unreal. He's playing out of his mind. I almost feel like he's playing like this is going to be his last year in Boston or something like that, because
he's talked about it before.
I don't know if he really wants to stick around in an organization that clearly had like issues with his exit in the playoff bubble. So, I mean, it would make sense if he felt this was his time to go.
Yeah. I think this series, though, is going to be a long one. I'll say this. I think it's going to be the Bruins. I think they're going to win in 7 here. I think this is going to be I think this is going to, and I think that's going to be a good series too. Like, I think it's going to be hard fought. It's going to be lots of offense. I think it's very clear that they're neither both really strong defensive teams. So I think it's going to be but either way, it's going to be very fun. Are you going the same route as I am here?
Yeah, I picked Boston in 6. I think it's going to be a really competitive series, but I don't think it'll be a full 7 for some reason. I just think it's going to be a lot tighter.
Fair enough.
But then moving down to the Central is Carolina, Nashville. I think Carolina is going to sweep Nashville, frankly.
You think they're going to sweep? Now, yeah. Okay. Why? Like, well,
I mean, as much as like it would be great if Nashville had one last, hurrah for Pekka Rinne, I just think Carolina is like playing out of their minds, and they have. Speaking of deep, their forward group, like at the top end, is like one of the best in the league. Their defense is unbelievable. Like they are basically a more fleshed out version of Boston with maybe a bit more creative of a top 6. So I think Nashville's on the older side at this point in their window. Like all their guys are like experienced vets, but they're not exactly the fastest team. They've got good creativity with like people like Forsberg and Arvidsson on the team, but like they're just like they're in that awkward phase. Like this is their Canucks 2014-15 Cup run basically, where it's just like they're happy to be there, but realistically, it doesn't do them any favors for the long term or the short term either. So for that reason, I think Carolina is going to come in hungry. I don't think they liked the fact that they got bounced in the first round in the playoff bubble. So they're going to come in guns a-blazing and probably shit right all over Nashville.
That's probable. That's definitely probable. I think you're close to where it's going to be. I think a sweep is a little bit harsher. I think I'm going to give Nashville a little bit more credit on this one, particularly not necessarily because of them so much as it is UC Saros, who's been incredible. I think if the one way Nashville could maybe walk out of here with a win, if like in terms of like the series, is if UC Saros is able to outplay Alex Nedeljkovic, who they've been running with for this season. I don't think that's going to happen. I think like you said, again, the Hurricanes are really, really well built. They're strong in just about every possible angle, goaltending being the one kind of question mark. And even then, that's again, not so much of a case of skill as it is a case of we're worried they might get hurt down the stretch. I'm going to say, obviously, yes, I agree. I agree that it's Carolina. I think I'm going to give the Nashville Predators, though, one game. I'm going to say they get one done. I think they're going to go. I think it's going to be Carolina in 5 here.
Everybody gets one.
Yes. Florida, Tampa Bay. The battle of the Sunshine State. This is I think Drancer called it Alligator Alley or Gator Alley or something.
It's a terrible name.
For Florida. I think it's fun. The battle for Disney World. You can call it what you want. Call it what you want. It's the best series out of all 8, in my opinion. Or it should be. It should be the best series out of all of them. The what?
The Bourbon Bowl. That's a Waterboy reference. Even though,
that's a good one.
That's Louisiana. That wasn't in Florida. Never mind. Ignore my reference.
Boo, yes, everyone ignore the references here.
My bad.
We don't know what we're talking about half the time. The Bortles. That's the only thing I know about Florida is Jacksonville. Anything I've seen from The Good Place.
Yeah.
But this is the series that includes, the defending Stanley Cup champions who will conveniently get back both Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov just in time for the playoffs. It's fascinating. It's an absolutely just like what perfect timing that they get both of them back right now. But you also have the Panthers, who have absolutely clowned on the Lightning over the last little bit. They have gotten some great goaltending from Chris Drieger and Spencer Knight.
Yeah.
They have gotten key contributions and a huge step up from Sasha Barkov, who has been always great, but he just went to a whole other level this year.
This season especially.
Anthony Duclair has played very well. I think they just added Nikita Gusev as well.
Verhage has been like
Carter Verhage,
value for them on a cheap deal.
former Lightning Carter Verhaeghe.
Yeah.
He was a Lightning last year and scored a hat trick against the Canucks. They have the Panthers have very quietly built an incredibly good team and like a well-rounded group. Like they don't have the most depth, but they're very good. But what they have is very good. Yeah. And it's like it looks like they could absolutely tangle with the Lightning and give them a hard time. Mm-hmm. And this is both. I'm picking this based out of my own love for this team and but also I believe this is actually what's going to end up happening in this case. As much as Kucherov and Stamkos give the Lightning an extra push, I think this is Florida. I think Florida's been too good. I think they're rolling right now. I think they're at their most confident they've been in a long time. I think this is their opportunity to exercise a few demons in terms of not having won a playoff series since 1996. I think they're going to get it done. I think it's going to be a long, great series. I think this is going to be the best series of all, and I think it's going to go 7. I think they're going to win in 7 on home ice in Sunrise. Florida in 7. What about you?
I'm the opposite. Tampa in 7. They get Kucherov and the Stamkos back. They
haven't played in a while, though. They haven't played in a while.
Matter.
Yeah, I will say
he played in like the entire season, and he came in one shift and scored a goal. Kucherov is going to come in, and he's going to like light the lamp like the first shift he has, guaranteed.
Okay, that's fair. I will say that my one question in terms of the Panthers is, and this is a question that I didn't realize was one up until like everyone started asking, which is, will Sergei Bobrovsky start game 1? Apparently that's an option still, and I'm kind of like, don't think so. I would be, if they did, that would be a terrible thing to do. Yeah. Like people are already like, well, they'll give Bobrovsky. Right. People were already being like, well, they'll probably give Bobrovsky a short leash, let him start 1 or 2, and then if things go trouble.
Even bother?
Thank you. Yes. Why would you even bother? You have 2 goaltenders who are playing just as well already. Run, especially if you're Florida, a team that's arguably the most desperate out of everyone to win at least a playoff series, except for maybe Toronto. Like, no, ride the hot hand. You go in with the goaltenders that have been winning you games. All right, we move over to the West, and we start with, again, this was kind of, I argue, ruined today. The ideal playoff series in this division was ruined a little bit today because Colorado just smoked the LA Kings in their last game of the season. To the surprise of absolutely no one. 2 games in a row. I think they outscored the Kings in their last 2 games like 12-1 in the last 2 games. Colorado wins the President's Trophy, and they edging out Vegas, I think, in regulation wins. And they get the St. Louis Blues, a team that won the Cup like 2 years ago and has not looked the same since and has kind of just been checked out the entire time. They also have Jordan Binnington, who's a huge hothead and not that good. I think this. I will let you go first on this one. What say you here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Colorado.
Yeah.
In how many games though? Because here's the thing: the Blues are good at grinding you down. They're another team that can grind you down a little bit. They're a little bit stronger than the Islanders, like in terms of offensively. I think I agree with you in the sense that Colorado
probably be like the Canucks, where it goes to 6 games.
You said Did you say Colorado in 5 here?
Oh, I meant 6.
Okay, you went 6. Okay, I'm also gonna go Colorado in 6. I mean, Colorado's so good. Like from top to bottom. I mean, we can get Samantha from the broadcast on here to talk about the Avs and how great they are. Again. The one worry for the Colorado Avalanche, literally, the one thing that can unravel them is what if Philip Grubauer gets hurt? Then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
I think they got Devin Dubnyk as like the insurance, which is...
But that isn't much.
I would say I would use the term insurance loosely there. Yeah. Because last year I think they tried with Michael Hutchison and it didn't end up so well. I mean, I'll say this. Dubnyk's at least an improvement on Michael Hutchison. All right, Colorado. And then Vegas, Minnesota. Again, I would have preferred to have seen Vegas play St. Louis because then you get the Pietrangelo sort of angle. And then Colorado and Minnesota, who have been playoff rivals for years. Like, that would have been a good series. Yeah. Minnesota, this seems like it's a walk. Like, this is an easy Vegas clear. But
I think
the
it'll be tough.
Wild have Kirill Kaprizov, who has been incredible this year and has completely like revived that team. Yeah. I'll say we'll let you go first on this one. I'll say, but you know what? Like, I think the goaltending is kind of the biggest. Obviously, the goaltending is where the Knights kind of have them a little bit, but it's a lot closer than I think people think.
For this series, I think Vegas has it. As much as I like Kirill Kaprizov and their rookie goaltender and Capo Kakkonen or whatever, like they're getting unreal goaltending out of like a rookie. I can't bet against the depth of Vegas. Like they're just such an insanely deep team. They've got Fleury playing out of his mind, and they have Lehner also there on this like the same team. They have Pietrangelo, who hasn't really produced that much for them, but like he's got the experience as like a recent Cup winner. I just think it'll like sheer experience alone is probably what's going to be the difference maker in this one. But, you know, Minnesota can hold their heads high that they, you know, went from being an out in the playoff bubble, looking like they just had nothing going for their organization to, you know, all of a sudden being like a contender, which is, you know, good
fun
for them.
Team.
And a fun team, which is shocking. Which Minnesota is not known for fun.
But Minnesota is literally the NHL equivalent of beige. Like they're so boring. They play the most boring style of hockey. They have beige in their logo, exactly. I will ask you the question: is there any team in these playoffs that's more Stanley Cup or bust than Vegas? Because I feel like with literally any other team, if they get anywhere close, there are stopping points beforehand where it's like, well, you know what? If we got this far, it's a successful year anyway. Vegas is the one team where I look at them and I'm like, oh, if you don't win the cup, you've completely failed. You've completely failed your mission.
They're a team that like is very impulsive in their decision making from like an ownership and upper management standpoint too. Like they fired Gerard Gallant despite having like 2 seasons of like great success of like, and they lost there because San Jose got that 5-minute major and scored 3 times to send it to overtime. It was the most incredible game you'll ever see in hockey history. And they fired him off of this sheer luck, basically. And I mean, if they don't do it this year after acquiring Alex Pietrangelo on his giant deal, shipping out Nate Schmidt for basically nothing, like if they don't make it, I feel like they would blow it up again to try and get Jack Eichel or something. Like that's how like
that is we'll totally
do whatever we need to revamp our team, even if it fucks up the locker room. But that's like our mentality. And if they lose again in the first round, they're gonna torch the place.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that's exactly what would happen. I think they would absolutely go after Jack Eichel. And I think a lot of that, I forget if we mentioned this on the last episode when we talked about the Knights, but Bill Foley specifically, I believe, is the oldest GM in the NHL. He is like, so there's actually, and that's part of the reason why they're so impulsive, is that idea that he wants to see them win before he passes away. Like that's kind of his thought process. So he's literally doing everything within his power of like, I will spend everything to the bone, to the point where like literally the Knights couldn't call up anybody the other day and they had to play up with a 15-player bench, which is incredible and I don't think has ever happened before because they're already in such cap, like so squished to the cap at this point. I agree with you. It's Vegas to win. But I think it'll be a little closer than people think. I think they'll get to 6 as well. I think they'll get to 6 here.
Yeah.
I think we're both fully in agreement on that one. And finally, we get to the North Division. This is okay. I would say as far as the divisional matchups are concerned, these are the 2 that I would say are the easiest to predict out of the other out of the 4.
I agree.
I think it's pretty clear who's going to win here. So instead of asking who's going to win here, I'll ask you this. Toronto, obviously, in terms of Toronto versus Montreal, obviously the Leafs, it is round 1 win or bust for them. They have to just win 1. What does Montreal have to do to actually win this series? What would you consider like the How do they get this done?
They need to
Is it
forget everything they've done over the last like month and a half and play like they did to start the season. Like they need to basically just like start fresh again. They need to, I don't know, they need to stop playing like complete duty,
yeah.
frankly, because I mean, knowing
Except for
Toronto,
you, Tyler Toffoli, you've been incredible.
knowing Toronto, they are going to turn this into a series on their own, not through virtue of being good, but just being Toronto. So I think it's going to be a 7-game series because even though Montreal has played like complete shit, Toronto will find a way. On the other hand,
Life finds a way.
Edmonton, Winnipeg, Edmonton is going to just destroy Winnipeg. If they don't have
Oh,
Nick
crush them.
Ehlers in their lineup, it's
Swept.
probably a sweep. If
Yep.
barring Connor Hellebuck putting on like Conn Smythe caliber shutouts every game type performances, like I just
Yeah.
don't think they have an answer for McDavid whatsoever. So those
Yeah.
are my two picks.
Yeah, I think they're screwed. I think they're absolutely screwed. I will say, yeah, and I said Toronto and Edmonton as well. The Jets are only winning if Connor Hellebuck absolutely stands on his head and Mike Smith turns back into a pumpkin at midnight, kind of thing.
Exactly.
With the Habs, I think it is possible that they could win this series, but again, that would be entirely based on them not playing the same way they have for the last 2 months. So I don't think that's necessarily possible. I think Toronto's going to clear them out pretty quickly. Also, Toronto, I think, has been actually pretty good all season long against the Canadians. Like, they haven't lost a lot against Toronto. Or against Montreal. Like, I think they're, one of the few teams I think they kind of ran the table on, except for the Canucks. I picked them in 5. Getting into we'll keep these ones kind of simple because again, these are based on the earlier parts. Pitt's going back to the East for the division winners. Pittsburgh, Boston. Who would win?
I'm thinking Pittsburgh just based on experience. I think Boston's got like a good team. It would take Tuukka Rask basically standing on his head, I think, to basically deal with the depth that Pittsburgh has in their forward groups.
Okay. Central. Who wins the Central? Carolina or Tampa in your end?
That's tough. I really hope it'll be Carolina, but based on my same logic with Florida, I think Tampa's going to win just by virtue of having Stamkos and Kucherov back in their lineup.
Okay. The West Division with Colorado, Vegas. This is which would be the best series of the semis if it goes your way.
I think it's Vegas. I as much as Colorado's playing like literally the best team in the league, I just think they're like Grubauer having a couple bad games away from just like completely blowing up in the playoffs. And I think Vegas could be that team that just like breaks them basically.
All right. Toronto, Edmonton. This would be, now compared to the last 2 series in the North, this one could actually be very good. This one could actually be a really good series.
It might end up being like actually relatively interesting because it's like, okay, you have Jack Campbell on one side and then the record setter Connor McDavid on the other side. Both teams played very well down the stretch. I think they only lost like combined like 3 or 4 games like each. Like they just really just ran the gamut. I think I have to say Toronto's depth does it against Edmonton because, like I said, it's Mike Smith or Mikko Koskinen, and you just know it's a house of cards. It's so close to just falling apart, and it doesn't take much to beat either guy, as the Canucks fans know when they beat Koskinen on 4 goals in 4 shots. Mike Smith can't play every single game at his age. He will literally die as an elderly senior.
That is true. That is something to factor in, yeah.
So I still think probably Edmonton does it though.
Edmonton, okay. And then and then we'll flip over to mine.
McDavid is playing at such an elite level right now that I think he can will his team to victory. I just think he can. He's having that kind of year.
On that note, we'll flip over to mine, and I'll say I actually agree with you that I think Edmonton will win, specifically because I do think Toronto is clearly the better team.
Yeah.
But Edmonton has Connor McDavid, who has literally just been unreal, like video game crazy good.
Yeah.
I think he and Leon Draisaitl could single-handedly win them a game, provided that, again, Mike Smith doesn't turn back into a Mike Smith we're more familiar with. I think it is their series. I think they could single-handedly, just stomp just about any team in their path, with the exception of probably the team that they're going to end up running into. So in like the final four, like the cup, they're not a cup team, but they're not a championship team, but they will get a lot farther than I think people anticipate.
Yeah.
The East Division,
Boston?
Pittsburgh, Boston. Again, I think Boston has the horses to get farther than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a little older. Crosby is still incredible, but he is not at the Connor McDavid spot in his career anymore. He can't single-handedly will a team to victory in the same way that he used to be able to. He's still very good. That's not to take away from the fact that he is still a generational, incredible talent. I just don't think that he can will the group that the Penguins have right now to victory against a team like Boston that is much stronger and has a lot better depth, in my opinion. Also, I think the goaltending battle factors in. I think Rask will clearly outduel Tristan Jarry. So I'm going to go Boston on that one. Central.
Carolina, Florida for you.
Carolina, Florida. So this one, so this is the one that's different for us. This is Carolina's to win in my bracket because they have just steamrolled. Florida's the one team that Carolina has just completely crushed the entire season. Like Florida's done incredibly well against Tampa. They have done almost the exact opposite against Carolina. Carolina has their number. They're just built. The way the Hurricanes are built, the Panthers just cannot handle, and it's been that way the entire year. So I think Carolina's going to get to a conference final again. I think this is their year to kind of run the table a little bit. I'm picking Carolina on that one.
Hell yeah. Colorado, Vegas.
You went Vegas. I'm going to say Colorado. Okay. I think Colorado has just been running super smoothly. I think they are they're not as they don't have as many names as say the Knights do. The Knights are a much more filled with name brand kind of players, but I think the Avalanche are the more complete team. I think they are built a little bit more. I think they're built in a way that can last a lot longer than the Knights can, where the Knights are almost built too much like an all-star team, I think, to a point where sometimes you kind of run into the question of, is there enough puck to go around for everybody? Whereas Colorado, they don't have as many names. They have Nathan McKinnon, they have Landeskog, they have Nazem Kadri, they have a lot of good players, but they seem to be built a little bit more. They seem to have really done a great job with roster construction. Joe Sakic's done a really good job with that. The goaltending is the one question. If Grubauer stays healthy, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be able to take down the Knights. If Grubauer does get hurt, though, then they're in trouble. And I think if we go to the end here, I think you get a chance to pick your cup finalists. We'll just say, I think it's only based on, what is this? I don't fully understand. Seed, that's interesting. Seed 4. Which one is seed 4? I guess that's Edmonton, isn't it? Or what does yours look like as I'm looking at the final tally? So yours is set for you. Interesting.
Yeah. You got to make your other picks. That's why.
I have to make my picks on which one is seed number 4. I guess technically seed number 4 is Edmonton, right? I think it's Edmonton.
Did it not load for you? Because then that's an error because it's supposed to. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, see, I had to pick.
It seeds it itself, but I don't really know how that number comes about, to be honest. It must have to do with the league standings at the end of the year.
Must
the
be.
only thing I can
Oh,
think.
because Edmonton, right, because you know what? Edmonton's season isn't over yet. That makes sense, actually. Um, so we'll say, ooh. So under my version, we would get, I'd get Ray Bork, the Battle of Ray Bork with Colorado and Boston, and then I'd get the '06 Cup final in the other with Carolina Edmonton.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not too bad. That one's fun. I'm gonna say Colorado, Carolina, take the number ones on both, and then the winner out of the two. As much as I love the Hurricanes, and I think they're pretty darn good. Ooh, that's actually tough. I'm gonna say Colorado. I think you have to go Colorado for mine. What about yours? Let's jump over to yours. You have Vegas versus Edmonton, and you have Pittsburgh versus Tampa.
I'm not gonna lie. After looking at my finals here, I actually hate my bracket because this is a terrible finals. I hate it.
You don't like the idea of, say, Vegas versus Tampa or Vegas versus Pittsburgh?
This is awful. I hate my bracket now.
Well, this is so. One of the things I'll let the listeners in on is that every year I fill out two brackets. I fill out one where I'm going based off of just my best, strongest, proper picks, and then I fill out a second one where it's just literally, this is what I want to happen. Like, in my want to happen version, Toronto doesn't win in the first round. They're out. And they just, because that would be amazing. And that would be set off so many of 5-alarm fires.
Yeah. Because in my bracket version, if like Vegas would probably run train on Edmonton, like the depth would just like clown on them. McDavid would be doing his best to try and score 7 points, and he probably would, and they'd still lose like 8-7.
Oh, Vegas would cook them. Vegas would absolutely cook them.
But yeah, I realized when I was picking my thing that I feel like Tampa doesn't have Victor Hedman in their lineup anymore. I think he's injured.
He is. I think he might be hurt.
Yeah,
if he plays again.
I realized that after making my pick, and now I'm doubting my entire Eastern bracket right now.
Oopsie.
But if he's fine, I would say if he comes back, I'd say Tampa wins over Pittsburgh, and then Vegas wins the cup. But because I hate my bracket, I'm gonna have to switch up that Tampa pick because I don't think
you should. Yeah, move it to Carolina. Flip it to the Hurricanes. Hell yeah!
I think Carolina probably makes it work, but then
they get to the final.
Things. I think Carolina then beats, I think Pittsburgh then beats Carolina.
Really? See, I think Carolina's a better team. I think Carolina beats Pittsburgh in that case. But this is your bracket.
Jared McCann does it, and I think just for shits and gigs, let's say Pittsburgh wins.
You want
It'd be really fun.
That would be quite funny if literally the team that I've routinely said it's gotten way too old ends up being the one that goes all the way and winning the damn cup just to show me
everything that like old hockey men GMs love to see is old, washed up hockey players winning the cup. So it'd be perfect for them. Brian Burke,
God damn it,
would see his old team winning the cup and being like, well, I guess I don't have to blow it up that badly. As look at the team I built, even though he didn't do anything this year as the president of hockey ops, but it would be just nonetheless very funny. So under these bracket choices, under the Judd bracket, I guess it would be Pittsburgh winning their third cup in 5 years. 6 years, I guess. Maybe 5. But I'm probably going to do like you. I'm going to make a second bracket because I don't like this one. I want a more fun turn of events.
Oh, yeah. I think my fun version would have... it would probably have Montreal going all the way to like the Final Four. It would definitely have Florida. Well, actually, the one thing is Florida, Carolina. I don't actually know who would win in that regard. I don't know who I'd pick to win on that one because I straight up love both of those teams. Yeah. So that would be the hardest one to choose from. And then I think in the other department, I would have like a Washington-Pittsburgh reunion. I think Washington would win that time. And then I think I'd get like Colorado versus Minnesota because screw the Knights. I don't like the Knights.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't like those guys. I don't need to hear Ryan Reeves making chicken noises for 4 rounds. It's garbage. I hate it.
That's fair.
They were just the worst last year. Just the worst.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was our bracket, and that was us making brackets. If you want to join us, you can. There's a Bitly link, so Bitly/2021 CreaseCast playoffs. We will include the regular link on Twitter and our social media accounts, as well as here on the Patreon. For those of you listening on the Patreon, the password is #mycontractsucks. No capitals, just my contract sucks. #mycontractsucks. It's great. So yeah, you can join us and we can play, and then at the end, maybe we'll have to get a prize. We might have to have a prize for whoever wins. Yeah, I don't know what that prize will be. We'll figure that out before Saturday. We'll figure out something. Yeah, for you guys. Overall, you're not feeling confident about your bracket though? Going into
none of the slides. I think this is probably the least confident I've ever been heading into a cup playoffs, just because there's so many asterisks heading into the teams, the brackets, the matchups. Like, who knows, right? I think this is the most anything can happen kind of year.
Yeah, and you know what? That totally tracks in the sense of we have not paid attention to the other three divisions much this year. So we don't actually really know a whole lot. You and I figured out in the last podcast that we didn't even know Alex Nedeljkovic was a thing for the Canes or that UC Saros had a damn .930 save percentage. That was all new information to us on Tuesday. So that just goes to show you how little we've been paying attention. So, and in a way, I think that's actually going to make for a more interesting kind of finale in terms of the brackets and everything, because I think it'll just make things a little bit weirder and a little bit more just anything could happen sort of sense this time around. And that was our Stanley Cup predictions. What did you think? Who had the better bracket? I will put up a poll on the CreaseCast Twitter account. If you're not already following it, it's at the CreaseCast, where you can vote to see who did the best job. I think it's me. Vote for me. It'll make Cody really mad. He's not here. He can't hear you. So this is a great ending. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. If you enjoyed our little podcast predictions, our playoff predictions, that was just a chunk of our Off the Post episode where we talked about a couple other things like NBA. We opened up a pack of NBA Top Shot cards. We talked about our hopes of getting our COVID vaccines relatively soon. We looked back at some of our CreaseCast predictions, our Canucks season predictions, and how well they went in terms of the regular season, as well as some division standings rankings that went very, very poorly. You can go check all of that out on the CreaseCast on our Patreon, patreon.com/CreaseCast. For only $5 a month, if you join the bonus pod squad, you get full episodes of Off the Post, regular episodes of Off the Post from us, exclusive on Patreon. You can also just make sure you're following us on all of your favorite podcast platforms, like Spotify, like Anchor, like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you leave us a review. We really appreciate the 5-star reviews. It really helps us out. It puts us higher in the algorithm. It helps us put our show in front of more people. You can also check out the video versions of these shows on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that. Hit the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes and episode highlights drop on the YouTube channel, as well as making sure you like the videos. Make sure you click that like button on those videos as well. And as for me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Lock in the Crease, where I post quite regularly on all of those things, and you can find my writing at lockinthecrease.com. We have one final North Division Power Rankings before the season comes to a conclusion, and you can check that out, as well as we'll have some playoff content for you. And I have an article coming out on a little site called Canucks.com pretty soon here for you to look out for as well. You can check out Cody's work as the Utica Comets finish up their season on Sunday. He's got a couple more articles coming out on CometsHarvest.com. You can also follow him at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and at Comets Harvest on Instagram. And with that in mind, thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully next week when we do our season finale, our season wrap up, our Canucks season wrap up, there's a lot more CreaseCast left for you guys this year. Make sure we will have some better news for you guys to talk about in terms of the future of the Vancouver Canucks. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Make sure you get your vaccine if you can. Wear a mask. Wash your hands regularly. Support local businesses. Happy weekend. Good night, everybody.